This incident was filmed by a police officer in a village in Rakhine State and somehow made its way onto Burmese social media. It shows security forces forcibly rounding up young boys. One of the policemen is seen beating a villager with a stick before another kicks him in the head and stamps on his legs. Campaigners say scores of Rohingya Muslim ethnic minority men and boys were taken and held for 2 days. Up until now, Myanmar has always maintained that despite evidence of what some are calling ethnic cleansing, the security forces in Rakhine State are following the rule of law. For the last 3 months, the militaries closed the area to independent observers after attacks on police posts by armed Rohingyas. Myanmar says they're militants inspired by Islamists abroad. Once full Rohingya villages are now empty as army operations caused tens of thousands to flee. Neighbouring Bangladesh has attempted to stem the flood of people crossing their border. They estimate 50,000 have sought refuge, but are urging Myanmar to take them back. The government of Aung San Suu Kyi is under growing international pressure to act, not least from angry ASEAN member states in the region. Plenty of video from Rakhine State already exists on social media, alleging that grave abuses like rape and extrajudicial killings are being committed by the security forces. But almost all of it is filmed by the Rohingya themselves, and so is usually rejected as fake by the Burmese authorities. The video of the police beatings, however, is not denied, and an investigation has been set up to punish the policemen involved. Campaigners say it's the first time the government has acknowledged abuses by its security forces.
Hated and hounded from Burmese soil, hundreds of Rohingya Muslims have now made it to Bangladesh. They're bringing with them horror stories of how an army crackdown on militants became a relentless assault on Rohingya communities.
The Burmese army has set many of our houses on fire. Some men were shot dead and some were slaughtered. We are in deep pain. We feel like jumping into the sea.
They set our houses and mosque on fire. My 2 sons are missing. They're killing people. Where are we supposed to live?
These Rohingya won't be missed. Though many families have been in Myanmar, also known as Burma, for generations, most people see them as illegal immigrants who belong in Bangladesh. The Burmese army doesn't want us to see what it's up to in northern Rakhine State, so it's keeping journalists and international aid workers out. But that's not stopped grim accounts emerging almost every day of abuses being committed against Rohingya civilians. We took a close look at what had happened in and around a Rohingya community called Jazeera, speaking to Rohingya and using video they filmed. These people are now living in the open after they fled soldiers who entered their village on November the 12th, looking for armed militants. With a helicopter flying overhead, the soldiers opened fire, killing men and, we're told, women and children. No one can tell us exactly how many died. When people felt safe enough to return, they found those that had fallen. A day later, these charred remains were discovered. We simply don't know how they died. The official version of events here is that soldiers shot dead 25 Rohingya attackers who approached them waving sticks and knives. Campaigners from Human Rights Watch have analysed satellite images of Jazeera and say in the week that followed, 265 houses were destroyed. The government say the Rohingya are setting fire to their own homes. It's all so different from a year ago, when hopes were high and Nobel Peace Prize winner Aung San Suu Kyi had just won a historic election. But Miss Suu Kyi's power comes not from principles, but partnership with the army. So much to the disappointment of human rights campaigners, she's refused to investigate the alleged abuses.
My worry is the same as your worry and the rest of the world, that we may be seeing something more horrendous than we anticipated. But unless we have a credible investigation, we will not know that, will we?
Awful things are taking place in northern Rakhine State, whether it's a crudely managed counterinsurgency or, as some say, ethnic cleansing. The continued suffering of the Rohingya is beyond question.
This is the mainland route through which the Rohingyas are now entering Bangladesh. On the other side of the mountain is Myanmar, and they say they can slip in without being detected easily. They're carrying with them whatever belongings they can leave with, household goods. And many of them say they've been walking for several days from their villages before they're able to get to this point. And before that, they have to make sure they're not detected by the Myanmar police or border patrols, because there's every chance of being shot. Once they get here, though, the Bangladeshi authorities are now letting them in. This is the first real shelter that the refugees have got. It's the local village school. We're in the first village after the border. And here they get a bit of protection from the elements. It's been raining. They're able to cook a little meal. But it's only temporary. They're here for a day, maybe 2 days, before they move on to one of the major refugee camps. That's where the government and aid agencies are present, and they get a bit more support.
You can see people in the background and people in the foreground.
UNHCR is gravely concerned about the continuing conflict in Myanmar, and by reports that civilians have died trying to seek safety.
Many of these people are living in terrible situations in makeshift shelters, without food. Some are living in the open. Some are living in what is a military area, and thus the appeal is for international aid to enable us to give life-saving services along with our partners, including clean water, sanitation, shelter, food security, healthcare, education, psychosocial support for the most vulnerable people.